redoing the bed that you're going to do, or the. Another thing is if you don't, I got out with a fork and just, my neighbor brought me a load of it, and I just got out with a fork and just sort of mixed it in. You can use kind of what they call the lasagna technique, and what you do, you just lay down newspaper or cardboard, and that kills the grit. And then the thing is, and then you add compost, and then you add mulch on top of that. That is a slower technique. It's a good one though, because one thing, when you till soil, that this is something they didn't know before, but every time you till soil, you're actually kind of breaking up the soil structure. So if you're patient, which I am not patient, so I didn't, it takes probably several years to do the lasagna technique, but it is very effective. And you just keep adding on to the layer. I don't have a lot of topsoil in my yard, so it would have been a good way for me to do it, just to add a layer on top of my house. I've never had, even though I'm in west part of Dallas, I've never had foundation plugs, because I think the Bible says, build your house on a rock. I'm built on limestone. So that would have been a good way for me to do it. Here's my side yard, and that's what we have. I had this was the hardscaping. Those are paved storms, and then I have gravel here, and then I got through and just bit by bit, and I'm so obsessive. I got out. I mean, my husband would be looking for me. He's, where's Ruth? And I'd be out before sunset, digging it in. I was determined to get it done. So this is the front part of the yard, and they talk about in the water wise is have practical turf areas. So like if you have a child, or if you have animals, dogs, you may want turf. I mean, some people are using fake grass now. I saw a truck this morning of somebody installing it. I mean, I just can't do that. I mean, it's like fake flowers or something. I'm too much into the natural world. But anyways, you want just enough. You don't want the whole thing to be turf. You want just enough to so the dog can use it, or the child can play, or whatever. But one of the things I'm glad, though, the landscape, I wanted to take all the turf off. Like I said, I'm kind of extreme, but she insisted that she pointed out that it's going to look really messy if you don't have, your vision, you want a kind of a clean area, and then have the beds kind of border it. So I'm grateful she encouraged me to do that. One of the things I did do, because I was determined not to have to use a sprinkler system, is I used a hybrid of buffalo called Turfalo, and it's real expensive, and I'm sure I recommend it, because it's thin turf, and it gets oh my God, it's got so many weeds in the. But I'm glad I've got it. Bermuda works good too. It doesn't take much water, and like you can let it go dormant. So and then the Lady Bird Johnson Center has come up with a hybrid of seed you can use. That's a lot of it is buffalo that gets a little higher. It may not please your neighbors, because it doesn't look like that perfect park or the golfing range that people want it to, but it's a but you won't have to water it. And so that was like I said, that's my goal. And then, like I said, the big thing you want to do is pick plants that are native or adapted to this area. I mean, I can't stress that. After prepare the soil, that's so important. And the topographical area we live in is what's called the Blackland Prairie. And we have some beautiful flowering plants here that are native and are adapted and don't take any water. They don't take any fertilizer. And man, those are the ones for me, so that I can go dormant in the summer. And these are the cone flowers. They've come up with some hybrids that are pretty colors, but they're not as sturdy as just the kind of pinkish ones. So that's a summer example in the summer, and this is in the winter. That's fall aster, and then rock rose or Pavonia. Actually, those are blooming right now too. They're beautiful. They kind of close down in the evening, but they're real pretty. And then this is my front yard is a Turk's cap, which is one of my favorite perennials, because it doesn't mind dry shade. Most shade plants take a lot of moisture, so in the shade it doesn't grow quite as tall, but and it'll do fine in full sun too. So it gets a lot taller there, but you don't have to water it. And then roses, these are Belinda's Dream. I have them right outside my front window there, which were great. They were the earth kind roses, but they've been overplanted. And anytime you overplant of something, it's ended up with roses or end up with rosette, which is called by mites, I believe. And so some of my, I didn't get the rosette, but some of my, I've just kind of let some of my rose bushes die off, and I'm going to replace them with something else. So, and then there's that's the mammoth sunflowers, which I love sunflowers. They're kind of weedy, I guess, they reseed. And then Esperanza, in August, when everything else is dying dead, Esperanza is like having a fiesta. It's like these beautiful yellow. I have some right outside my in a pot that I've kept, and it dies down in the winter, even our terrible freeze winter, but I just cut it down to the roots, and then it comes back every year, no problem with it. So I like that one. And then one of the things, I lived in Arizona for about 6 years, and I didn't want my yard to look like Arizona. I mean, I just thought, it makes me thirsty looking at those landscapes. But one of the advantages of using, like, this is a spineless cactus, but don't let kid yourself. It has little spines in it, so I have to use double rose gloves to mess with it. But the advantage, and this is a variegated yucca. The variegated, these fancy hybrids don't do as good as the original ones. Some of those, a lot of those got root rot, but my regular yuccas are doing fine. But what they do is when everything dies down in the winter, they're still there. So you have some kind of architectural structure to your yard. So that's an advantage of them. I don't want the whole yard to be cactus and yuccas, but it's nice to have them kind of sprinkled throughout the landscape. And then anything that lamb's ear, anything that has kind of a fuzzy gray color, which I like that as a color contrast. It affects the evaporation from the leaves, so they are drought resistant. Don't have to water those a bit. And then here the coneflowers are just blooming right now. They're so pretty. And then the red tip yucca, I love it. I noticed Central Expressway, they used to have this other landscaping along the median. And I was just driving down Central Expressway this weekend, and they've planted just red tip yucca, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's so pretty. And it's blooming everywhere now. It did take about 3 years for it to finally bloom, so I had to use patience with that. But it's great. And, of course, the stalks die down in the winter, but you still have the base of it there. So that's a great one to plant. Zero water needed, not a bit. And then one of my favorite perennials, in fact, one of my neighbors saw mine, and she said, can you tell me what that plant is and where I can get it? It's Salvia greggii, and it's like it blooms on, anything that blooms is going to kind of cycle through on and off, but it blooms more than it goes off. And with little blooms, but they've got beautiful colors of it, and it's semi-evergreen in the winter, so it doesn't die completely down. So it's just like a wonderful, wonderful drought-resistant plant. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, isn't that that's one of my favorite colors, of that kind of pink. And then there's feathergrass, which the only problem with feathergrass is it likes to make babies in the cracks in the sidewalks. It reseeds everywhere. But I've seen some people in my neighborhood who have started using it in place of turf. And, it does get kind of weeds between it, but it's real pretty. It looks like kind of a ballet dancer. And believe me, you don't want to water that at all. Zero, no water required. So I have it just kind of in different areas of my landscape. And then a girlfriend of mine who is an artist and a photographer, she came by and took pictures of my landscape one year. And these are all plants that they came from my landscape. So we do the Blackland Prairie. There's you don't have to plant if you plant azaleas and things like that, gardenias my mother used to plant, it's going to be an uphill battle. Don't go with what belongs here. I'm a Dalasite, let the plants be Dalasites, and there's beautiful ones to choose from. So that's why I want to introduce you to those. And then another girlfriend of mine who she's a recycle artist, and she takes hubcaps that people drop, lose over and turns them into art. And so I've bought a bunch of her hubcaps, and I have them all over my yard. And it's water wise, I'll tell you, you don't have to fertilize it. You don't have to water it. It doesn't freeze in the winter. I mean, I just leave them out there and they're beautiful. So in fact, after the big freeze that happened a couple of years ago, that was all that was seemed to be left in my yard. Not I'm not exaggerating, but it's really nice that, like, I had a tree that died, and I just stuck it on top of the trunk. It's a flower. So anyways, you can use yard art. And so my next door neighbor, she said, "Ruth, does that mean that the answer to gardening is plastic?" I said, "No, no, no, no." But anyways, I love the idea of recycling, like Sharon does. So very important. And this is one of the mistakes that I made when I first did my own landscape for the WaterWise tour is I wanted it to look pretty for the judges. And so I put little, I put little annuals in between the drought resistant plants. But the problem with that is that, if you water the annuals, then you're going to overwater the drought resistant plants. So you really need to zone the plants. So that's why it's hard to figure it out. So that's why I needed a landscape architect to help me with it. So you want the high water plants, like I said, I don't do any maintenance over the summer. But I did, like, I was at Walmart and I picked up some tropical plants and I have them right outside my door. And when I leave town in July, I'm just going to let them either give them to my neighbor, or I'm going to just let them die. They're only, they're like $10 or something like that. But I see them right outside the window, so they're pretty. So put the pretty things closer to the house. So this is out by the curb, and it used to be like a bed of weeds. So what I did is I put down, my neighbor helped me put down gravel. And one of the things I learned we put landscape fabric under it. No, that's a mistake, because it just compacts the soil under it and the weeds still get through. So I ended up taking that out. But in order to earn its place out by the curb, the plant has to require zero extra water. Zip. I never ever water there, except maybe when I was getting established. And these were pincushion flowers, and they started to require water. So I transplanted. They got booted out of this area because they didn't qualify for that area. So you want to think, that's where the dogs do its business. That's the hottest part too, right by the street where the concrete is. So you want further away from your house, and I don't really see it from my house either. So I mean, of course, the neighbors see it when they walk by. And both my neighbor and I, we took the grass out of that and landscaped that area instead. It was just so ugly before. And then closer to the house, right outside. In fact, after I had done my yard, I it's like you spend money on one thing, you find other things to spend money. I had these big picture windows put in so I could see my beautiful garden. But anyways, this is right outside the picture window, and this is where I put pansies in the winter. And I've got a peacock sculpture outside. So I always try to match the peacock. I mean, I love it. I was a home care physical therapist. One of my patients was a sculptor, and she made it, and I bought it from her. And then this is right out. I have a glass door outside my kitchen door. And so in this picture, I had pansies. Right now, what I have out right there is herbs. So all I have to do, if I'm making I was just making something that needed basils. I just step out the door and I clip the basil from there. So and vegetables, and they wanted me to do one time a thing on WaterWise vegetable garden. I went, growing vegetables is not WaterWise. You have to water them. They need consistent moisture. But the deal is, if you zone them where you're going to water all the time, and then preferably put them close to a rain barrel, which is what I've done. I'll show you that in a minute. So this is just some general things that you want to get at least an inch of water a week. That's and then oh gosh, I go for a long walk every morning, and it drives me nuts seeing sprinkler systems going. I mean, it's just like, half that water it's going onto the sidewalk, and it's just evaporating. And people, people aren't following the City of Dallas rules at all. It just breaks my heart to see it. It's just like our water supply, our population is increasing. I mean, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but water is a precious, potable water especially is so precious, and just wasted into the atmosphere is just it's just so irresponsible in my. So that's why I'm not really into turfs and into sprinkler systems. Measure the moisture. Now this is really interesting. You can get these, you can get them online, or you can get them at a garden center, moisture meters. And a lot of times you'll think that the soil is dry because you'll stick your finger in it feels dry, but if you stick it down a little lower, a lot of times it'll tell you that it's actually not dry. So anytime I water my house plants or pots or anything like that, I always check first, because more often than not, it ends up being wet. And they say use your finger, but I don't know. When I use my finger, everything starts to feel the same to me. So I'm not that big on doing that. So I'm a big believer in this moisture. I used to have one that had all these numbers on it, but I like this. You know, this is something I can understand. Dry, wet. I can get that down. So hand watering is a good idea. What you want to do, one of the things I recommend is to use if you're going to hand water something, and I believe the city doesn't limit how often you can hand water, is to use a long handled wand, they call them. And the reason for that is you don't want to water the leaves. Like right now I have tomato plants, and they've got all kinds of, every year they get them, even though I get great tomatoes, they have all kind of fungal spores on them. If you water the leaves, you're just spreading the fungal spores on everything else. So you want to get as close to the roots as you can. And I remember when I was at a church giving a talk, and somebody said, well, God waters from above. And I said, yeah, I know, but when you're watering, that's God's business. When you're watering, you need to just do the roots if you can. So soaker hoses, if drip irrigation, actually, I was kind of intimidated by it, but it's really, and I'm glad the code now is requiring drip irrigation in a lot of landscapes, because then it doesn't evaporate up. And then rainwater collection system, I'm naturally kind of cheap. And I mean, it's, like it's free water, it's falling from the sky. Why wouldn't you want that? So this will be in your, or is in your water bill, the number. So like I'm in an odd number. I don't use my sprinkler system. So Judy was telling me, be sure to give this information. So that's why I'm giving it. But and I'll tell you, my neighbors are all breaking this law. I hope I'm not going to tell them, but like I ended an odd number. So I'm only supposed, if I were to use a sprinkler, only Saturdays and Wednesdays are my day, and only between 10 and 6. And the reason for that is those are the cooler parts of the day, if you can call any part of the day right now cool. But so it's less likely you're wasting less money than you already are. Rain barrels, this one I bought it at Sam's, and I've since gotten rid of it because it was so hard to clean out. I mean, it got to, so it stunk, and it just had a little area in the top of it. But I love the way it looked. It looked like pottery in the yard. And you always want to put your rain barrel on top of something, or invest in a pump for it, so that it makes use of gravity to make the water go run. This is the one, this is right outside my vegetable garden, and I use this frequently. I ended up I had mosquito netting on it. Now I just have an old screen that I put around I went to a make your own water barrel class. They have them periodically, and it's a tomatillo container. And it was bright blue, so I painted it so it kind of blends in with the house, and you really don't even see it. I mean, it's really nice. So that's free water. And also it's not chlorinated, that's falling out of the sky, and it's usually the plants are happier with it. Have you ever noticed after it rains that even if you water a lot, the plants just look happier? I think they're probably, I don't know this for sure, but they're collecting probably nitrogen from the air, from the atmosphere or something. So anyways, that's at my front door. And you want to use mulch. That's after you do my master gardener mentor, I remember he looked me straight in the eye and he said, Ruth, the answer to gardening is compost and mulch. Repeat after me: compost and mulch. And mulch, it's like putting a bedspread on a bed. It just makes everything look so pretty, no matter how awful your yard looks. In fact, the area where I had my side yard where I have pansies, I decided a lot of times I'll put zinnias this time of year, but I thought, I'm going dormant this summer. I don't want to water anything. I don't want to mess with anything. So I just put down some compost, and then I put down a thick layer of mulch over it. And it really doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's not as pretty as if I had flowers there, but I have lantanas and stuff like that around it that don't have to take water. So I don't have to waste water in there. But then, just the way the mulch, you can get hardwood mulch or my favorite mulch is I have every every fall I vacuum. I have this thing that vacuums up the leaves and breaks them up, which they need to be broken up or else they're just going to blow away. And then I use that in a lot of my landscape for mulch. So it's and my neighbors put out their leaves for the heavy trash, and I'm like, I go out with a wheelbarrow, and when the heavy one time the neighborhood patrol caught me doing it. He said, "Did you get permission?" I said, "No, but I'm a master gardener and I'm trying to save the landfill." And he didn't care. So anyway, I knocked on the door and asked for permission to take their leaves, which it's out there for the heavy trash. Of course they want me to take them. So anyways, that's in the fall, the mulch. And then here I am, the Waterwise Landscape Tour winner, one of the happiest days of my life. I was so excited. So anyways, after my original trauma. So anyways, my landscapes changed a lot from the original pictures. So I got out yesterday evening and took pictures of what's happening now. And you can see here, I haven't watered anything, 0 in the front yard. I mean, and I didn't, we had a lot of rain last summer, but I'm just gonna let it go. So the grass does kind of brown up, but as soon as it rains or starts in the fall, it greens right back up. And so that's my front yard. And then there's that little cactus, which was just a few little, in fact, I have to keep, so it doesn't break it doesn't go out into the street, into the neighbors. I have to keep tearing it off. And then I remember I did a talk at the Fern Society. It was this little bitty fern, and now it's turned into a fern tree. So that's the front yard. And then this is outside my front door. So you see, it's, you don't have to water. I mean, it's beautiful and green, and I've got some color in there. And then let's see, am I doing okay on time? Somebody popped on. Oh dear. Okay, I'm almost done. And then I have a problem with this is right outside my kitchen door, and that's where I have those tropical plants. And you can, while I'm sitting and eating, you can see them. So I see these blooms, and I do water them every morning. Sometimes I'll take out I'll dilute the coffee that's left over, and I'll just pour that into it. So I'm really into not wasting. I mean, I do a navy shower. I don't let the water run. I just wet myself off and soap off. And our water bill is usually never over $70 or so, which in the middle of summer is pretty good. So I had a cage built because the squirrels kept eating my tomatoes. It really pissed me off. So anyways, this has been 6 or 7 years I haven't gotten in, and the rain barrel is right there. So a lot of times I'll just carry the water over there to water this. I've had to hand water it, some of it, but that's right outside the back door. And then that's the area where, I mean, it's not very pretty, but what the heck? I don't have to water it, so it's fine. These are lantana. They'll be blooming more, and I've got the rock roses there and the feather grass, and I've got my yard art. And this is a good plant too. I didn't show it. It's a dwarf Sobel palm, and it withstood the freeze. So it's kind of a nice one that adds up pretty. So anyways, I just put a thick layer of mulch there. And then this is my alley. I've got cannas and flame acanthus, and I've got butterfly plants there. And believe me, I get lots of, but you plant it, and I went to a butterfly class at Texas Discovery Garden. You plant it, and the butterflies come. So I mean, it's like so good to attract wildlife to your garden. And then there are my sunflowers, which I love, which plant themselves. And then this is an elm tree, and these are the Turk's cap right there, and flame acanthus, and then my yard art. And then so that's pretty much it on the talk. The best tip I have is you can go to if you have any garden questions. It's your taxpayers' dollars are paying for it, and the newer, especially the newer master gardeners, are really up on researching and finding the right answers. If you have a question, and you can get to it through this email address, or you can just go to DallasCountyMasterGardeners.org. And you can follow the link, and then I'll have a disease plant or something like that. In fact, I was at a master gardener project yesterday, and somebody said, "Why are these peppers browning?" I said, "I don't know. We need to ask a master gardener." And we were all master gardeners. So anyways, if you go, you can take a picture of it and send the picture in, and they'll give you research-based information on it. And then, when I started the Master Gardener program in 2009, they didn't have all these fun things. We have an Instagram account and a Facebook group, and I mean, you can just go at it. So that's it for my talk. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. So maybe Judy or somebody can read them to me if you're in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, whatever. Anybody there?
Yes. Hey, Ruth.
Okay.
We don't have any questions yet, but we did have some really good comments.
Okay.
From Nancy wrote, I shut off our sprinkler system in 2008, a little supplemental water during the droughts, but native plants have thrived, recovering from periodic dormancy during severe drought. That was really awesome to hear.
Yeah, Nancy's a master gardener.
And then Connie
That's the
wrote,
trick. You won't have to, you can go dormant too if you'll just plant the right things and prepare the soil. I mean, those are the magic tricks that I'm offering.
Connie wrote, I did my first watering this year on Sunday, mostly for house foundation. Native plants for this ecoregion are surviving well with no supplement.
It's another testimonial. Hallelujah.
Let's see what other people have written. Okay. From Novella, we have a question. Hi there. What advice do you have for apartment balcony plants?
I would say, what do you call them, like sedums or I'm blanking on the name of the kind of plants. I would, because it's so hard to keep things watered. You want things like cactus or sedums, or you can get them in a big box store. Things that just don't take any water at all is what I would do. They keep wanting me to do a talk on container vegetable gardening, and I can't do it because it doesn't work for me. it's just so hard to keep things watered. And I mean, if you could do like I'm doing with you can get a pretty tropical plant and just realize you're going to have to compost it at the end of the season just for color or whatever. So, and you could probably do Mediterranean herbs too. That's another thing, like thyme and oregano and I realize that those things, they come in these cute little containers that got them all mixed together, and they get to be real big. So you have to realize you have to make space for them. So, but in terms of being water wise, it's tough on a patio, but possible. I mean, some people have pretty ones.
Okay, so our next question is from Val. Where is the best place to place a rain barrel system? The northwest, east, or south side of the house?
I'll tell you what I did. Like the ideal place is if you have a gutter system, is have somebody route it from the gutter into your rain barrel. But the next best thing, in fact, the one rain barrel that I really still use, I waited for a downpour, for several downpours, and I looked out the windows to see where most of the water seemed to be coming, and I aced it because a good downpour and that rain barrel gets filled up right away. So just you have to. I don't think east, west, south makes any difference. Just wherever you get the most water coming off the roof. So and I love that one too, because I didn't have to mess with the gutter or anything like that. And also, since it's got a big wide top, unlike the ones from Sam's, if I want to, I can just dip the water. I have a faucet on them, but I can just dip the water container into it. So.
Okay, and then Nancy wrote, many of our natives will do just fine in pots. A little water for container plants is not wasting water, in my opinion.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, that's good. That's a better answer. Yeah.
And then Connie wrote, oops, many succulents have beautiful blooms.
Succulents, that's the word I was thinking. I couldn't for the life
for
of
apartment balcony.
They're not cactus. What's it? Thank you. Must be old age.
Okay, Nancy wrote, put your rain barrel in a place where your gutter system will deliver the most water. And Judy wrote, do you have to clean out the rain barrel often?
No, I never. In fact, that's why I got rid of some of my rain barrels because they were needing to be cleaned out. The tomatillo container, I put mosquito bits in it so it doesn't breed mosquito, even though I've got netting over it. But because it's open to the top, it doesn't get smelly like the other ones do. So I've never cleaned that one out, and it seems to be fine. Plants do fine. You just don't want one that's enclosed. And they do recommend you get one that's opaque so that it doesn't grow mold and stuff. So the sun, it's in a shady area, so it doesn't get a whole lot of sun there. But I mean, one time I did start to clean out a rain barrel, and I thought this is wasting so much of water, and the whole reason I'm doing this is to save water. So that's why I'm not as passionate about rain barrels as I used to be. You get jaded after a while with some of the stuff.
Any other questions? We've got a few minutes left. I am putting in the link for our event, Earth Day Every Day, that we have on the 23rd. If anybody, it's kind of cover a similar topic as today's talk. Any other questions before we finish for today? Last call.
Oh yeah, happy summer solstice, everybody. The longest day of the year.
My camera came on. Hello, Ruth.
Oh, what did you do?
I don't know. It just came on a few minutes ago. And I'm so glad I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was just watching the presentation because suddenly it just popped on. I'm like,
wow.
Oh, wow.
They were having trouble getting their cameras on, the people from the city and the library. So
thank you. This is so great. One of the things that I still make the biggest mistake is what you were talking about. Make sure that the plants you put together are on the same type of watering plan, I guess you would call it, because sometimes I tend to want to put a planter box together and then I realize, oh, some of these don't need as much water as the other ones, and then they all suffer one way or the other then.
yeah, a girlfriend of mine brought home a bunch of herbs from a big box store, and she was doing that. And I said, wait a minute, hold it. You got to put, these are the Mediterranean herbs, and then you need another pot for the ones that need water. So,
yeah,
so it's very important. Yeah. So
it is.
And these plants that I'm recommending, that's something I should have added too. The best time to plant them is in the fall, because the tough season for Dallas, of course, we had that winter freeze, but the toughest season for plants and humans in Dallas, Texas is the summer. So what you do is if you'll plant them in the fall, then the roots have a chance to get established and grow into where they can get to the water. And then when the stressful time comes, they're ready to go. So
made it through.
Yeah, I wouldn't get out and start planting native plants right now. I wouldn't get out at all, like I said. I mean, to me, air conditioning is like mother's milk. I was raised on it, and I'm grateful. I mean, I pray that it doesn't go bad either. I mean, I love my air conditioning. I'm totally into it. So
that's what we're all seeking right now. Yes.
Yeah.
We've got one more question from Novella. Is it possible to reuse water from washing dishes and direct for irrigation, or is this harmful to the plants and pollinators?
I believe it's what they call gray water, and I would love that. I hate it that the water from the wash. It's probably best to use kind of natural type soaps and things like that. But yeah, in Arizona and arid areas, they're starting to do that. They actually, I read an article in the New York Times about it. Yeah, the New York Times, it's what I've been doing for all these years is suddenly in style. They had a thing on using. It was just this week. They had an article on using your urine for fertilizer, and like in third world countries, they really, they can't afford the fertilizer, and they've really been able to grow better crops. Of course, I think it's probably best to put it in your compost pile instead of peeing on the yard. But I was thinking, my husband is like, I'm always doing these wild things like, oh no, She's going to be
Well,
safe.
back in the Roman times, they used it as a bleach, right? I mean, it's been used for different things through the centuries. So
Yeah, it's full of nitrogen,
knows?
and when it exits your body, it's sterile. So I mean, so I'm gonna probably try that for my compost pile and see if I can pep it up a little bit, save my pee. But anyways, all this stuff is in style now. So I'm so excited, saving water and using gray water. And I think yeah, there's a cost investment in having it directed out into the the plumbing. And it probably doesn't meet our city code either, but I don't even see any reason why you couldn't take a shower. I mean, I'm pretty extreme, but not that extreme. I don't, like, I've heard of people, they keep a bucket in the shower, and the water from the shower, they haul out and dump it onto
I've been hearing that lately.
so like if you're really into it, that might be a thing to do too. So anyways,
Yeah.
thank you guys. This was fun to do. I always enjoy this one.
Thank you so much. This is so filled with information.
Oh,
Your
great.
yard looks amazing. All your gorgeous plants. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, I guess
Please come back.
show's over, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Brandon.
Bye, everybody. Happy gardening. Happy sitting in the air conditioning.